Ask Me Anything by Radical. I'm an ex-white supremacist and Klansman. Ask me anything. I joined in my early 20s and remained active in the wider movement into my late 20s. To address the most commonly asked questions beforehand. No, I was not raised that way. My parents didn't and don't have a racist bone in their bodies. I was introduced to the ideology as a youth outside the home. Yes, I genuinely believe that I was fighting for a just cause. And yes, I understand that that may cast doubt about my intellectual capabilities. No, I never killed anybody, ever. I hope we can have civil discussion. But I am expecting some shit. If I get enough of it, be on the lookout for me tomorrow over at r/tifu. Edit. Go to stop guys. Real life calls. Thanks for your interest. Sorry if I didn't get your question. The person doing this Ask Me Anything has provided the mods with photographic evidence of himself engaging in activities usually associated with the KKK, wearing the outfit one might expect. While we don't consider this to be conclusive proof of his membership in the organization, we find it highly likely that he was indeed a member at some point. What could have stopped you from going down that road? Would friends or family interjecting have helped stop you, or would it push you further along? I think if I had more experiences growing up that introduced me to other races and cultures early on, it would have been much harder for me to buy into racism as a way of life. Do you have any tattoos you regret? Did you get cover-ups? Still got it. Right over my heart. I want it covered up bad. What role, if any, did women play in the Klan while you were a member? Did you have Klanswomen as a formal part of your organization? Or was there a separate group for Klanswomen like there was in the 1920s? The ladies had their own group, but were included in all meetings and ceremonies. One of the people running a good part of the show while I was in was female. Was there a specific forum or outlet that you believe supported and or cemented your beliefs at the time? Was it a feeling of belonging or some other want that you sought that allowed these ideas to take root? Yes, but I'll not advertise for them. Early in my teens, yes. Later I was just consumed by it. Do you still have contact with people inside of the Klan or who are white supremacists generally? Were you ever concerned for your safety when you decided to leave? I do not have any contact with anyone from that life. I was not concerned for my safety when leaving the Klan. I was when I left the greater movement. And there are people in other groups that probably wouldn't mind stomping me. How did those outside of your white supremacist friends, such as friends, teachers in school, treat you as a result of your Klan involvement? Did you find it harder to get a job and make other big life choices due to your background? I kept the two lives very separate. Can you describe the recruiting tactics used by the Klan, or are they mainly trying to keep the members they have? These days violence is largely by the wayside. Hate crime legislation was very effective. You see a lot of courthouse activity in the Klan now. Idea is to watch the news. Find towns where a black person commits a crime against a white person. Book the courthouse for a protest. Flyer the black areas with inflammatory flyers announcing the protest. The black community will show up enraged, and the few cells of white people that show up will be a mixture. By the end you've divided the community and found a few sympathetic whites. Wash, rinse, repeat. In your experience, how many in your white supremacy KKK peer group fell outside the dumb redneck or skinhead stereotype? Were there suit and tie businessmen, teachers, medical professionals, lawyers, etc.? There were a good few reasonably intelligent people, mostly middle-class working types. It was a small organization. There was one rich member who no one really knew. He once booked out an entire motel out of pocket so the group could attend a convention. Kudos to you for getting away from it. Do you still have prejudiced thoughts, feelings, and if so, how do you deal with that? Do you just ignore them, or do you actively tell yourself that they are the wrong way to think? You know, I do. I just have to constantly remind myself that my hang-ups are perception and not reality. I like to think I've made some progress though. Was everyone a genuine racist, or did some people tag along? Nah, plenty of those guys aren't even really racist. I was in a vehicle with two other Klansmen once, and there was an elderly black couple on the shoulder with a flat. We got out and changed their tire, then left. I never heard it mentioned again. How did your parents react to this shift in personality? Dad hated it. Mom disliked it heavily and hoped it was just a phase. What changed your mind and why did you quit? Life has a way of kicking your ass when you make bad or stupid decisions. I think after a few of these ass kickings you start looking at yourself critically. This happened to me, and once I accepted that I wasn't right about a few things, from there my whole belief system kind of unraveled. At this same time, I met some black individuals who unwittingly played a part in the saga. Have you since seen or talked to anyone that you may have treated unfairly due to your previous views to apologize to, or reconnect with them? If so, what was that like? If not, would you like to? 1. The black gentleman I began praying with daily was very caught off guard and hurt when I told him. A big part of me wishes I had packaged it better somehow. Did your group have batshit crazy role names like Grand Dragon and Wizard? Yes. What are some of the secret codes or signals white supremacists use to identify one another? I've seen the 88 thing but curious of other ones. The Klan has a series of handshakes, signals, and acronyms known as Klanguage. The acronyms are simple and generic. IAAC equals "Are you a Klansman?" AKIA equals "A Klansman I am." The fact that influences outside your family impacted you so strongly seems to be very common. Would you give any advice to parents to avoid their kid being coaxed into such beliefs? Do you wish any aspects of your childhood changed? Advice with kids is tricky. I don't know what my parents could have done differently. I was headstrong and rebellious. How can I get my dad out of the Klan? Probably the best bet is kind good experiences with black people that make him see black people as human and similar. Do you enjoy foreign cuisine, Indian food, Chinese takeout, jerk chicken? Yes, nothing bonds me to a new culture faster than food. How would you go about opening a discussion with people who still hold these beliefs? Most importantly, shelve emotion or else don't have to conversation. Appeal to their humanity first. Find things to relate through. Develop a relationship and the conversation will come. When it does, be firm but be soft-spoken and rational. How open with the people in your life are you about this? Do you discuss your choices openly? I did and that went not so well, so I moved and now I keep it a secret. What sort of views did you hold about those of other races compared to your own? Were those outside of the Ex-KKK movement seen as inferior physically, intellectually, or otherwise even if they were your own race? There are varying degrees of this. If you get really into the whole Übermensch thing, for the most part I was more of a segregationist. I didn't necessarily think whites were by nature better, but that we should live separately from other races. Toward the end, I became more irrational and hate-driven. Do all the Klan groups, for lack of a better word, get along well? How many of them were violent people? Did people you met ever participate in racially motivated crimes? How many people on average would be in a Klan group? Were they older or young people? Was the racist sentiment in the Klan devoted mostly towards blacks, or was there just as much hate towards Catholics, Jews and Latinos or other groups the Klan hates? Their attitudes towards politics in general? How often would the Klan meet? Or does it depend on the group? What is wearing the outfit like? There's a ton of infighting. Comic proportions of it. Membership topped out around 150 during the years I was in, a mixture of early 20s through mid 40s. With some old timers, there were still a couple members around from the violent 60s. So yes, there was a criminal element. Racism was against all races non-white. Catholics were accepted as members, as you would expect. Most members preach hardline conservative politics. Chapters meet monthly. The outfit feels goofy honestly. What is different about the Klan and other movements like it from how it's depicted in the media? The people aren't all complete morons. That element exists, but there are others who are otherwise perfectly normal people who happen to be wrong. Do you feel like you have way more comedians you can enjoy now? I secretly watched Dave Chappelle back then. How did your group view whites who opposed them? I've been called a race traitor before, and I wondered if that was a common view, and if you, while in the group, felt any special hostility to whites who actively oppose you, as in street protests. Race traitors were viewed as lower than different races. I hated them then, but I am considered even lower than a race traitor myself now. Kudos on your personal growth. Your courage in participating in this may be inspiration to others. On top of this, is there any way that you actively try to steer others from your old community away from that dangerous train of thought? If I hear language heading in a racist direction, I confront it and argue against it. Doesn't happen often though. Is it easy to identify those that might be sympathetic to white supremacy, either those that are potential recruits or those that are already involved? Thanks for watching this radical video. Subscribe for the best Reddit videos straight to your feed 3 times a day.